That right there is the all-new 2019 Jeep Wrangler. It's probably the most iconic American vehicle ever made, and by now you should be really familiar with this truck because Jeep managed to sell about 250,000 of these things in all of 2018. I've become pretty familiar with the JL Wrangler, had some time to spend driving it and its truck sibling, the Gladiator. However, this right here is a special Wrangler because it's powered by an all-new 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, which Jeep calls their Hurricane engine. It marks the return of a 4-cylinder under the hood of the Wrangler after about 13 years. And in today's video, the big question I want answered, is the all-new JL Wrangler any good with only 4 cylinders? That's what we're here to find out. So because I've already showed you a review on the 6-cylinder version of the Wrangler, I want to talk about the 4-cylinder, and let's start with under the hood because like every other Wrangler, you can practically just open up the hood. A random stranger can do it. You don't actually have to go inside. Once you release those 2 latches, flick that over to the side. There is a little prop rod that comes down. This is going to reveal the 2-liter turbocharged engine. Now, I've been waiting to drive this motor in the Wrangler for quite some time. It's actually the same motor that powers the Alfa Romeo Giulia and Stelvio. It's part of their Hurricane engine family. It's kind of a joint development with Fiat and Alfa Romeo. In the Wrangler, it makes 270 horsepower and 295 foot-pounds of torque. Now, that's actually 10 less horsepower than what you get, or 15 less than what you get in the 6-cylinder, but this gives you about 35 more foot-pounds of torque. It's also realized at a much lower RPM, so you have more off-the-line feel. It's also assisted by their e-assist, their mild hybrid system. Jeep says that it adds like 22 horsepower in certain conditions and up to 71 foot-pounds of torque just initially off idle. It's kind of there to kind of fill in the gaps that you'd feel with a turbo engine, and it also replaces the starter, so the start-stop technology is just much smoother. Now, we'll go into that later on in the test drive, but just know that fuel economy is also better versus the 6-cylinder. You're going to get 22 in the city, 24 on the highway, which is a 2 mpg improvement. This thing is also rated to run on regular gas. Now, the one thing about the 4-cylinder, it comes standard with only an 8-speed automatic transmission, which makes the 4-cylinder price increase about $3,000 more than the 6-cylinder, which we'll talk about later if it's actually worth that extra cost. Now, towing capacity of this thing, it should be around the same at 3,500 pounds, which is about half what you're going to get on the Gladiator. I believe that's one of the reasons why Jeep didn't offer this 2-liter in the Gladiator, because the Gladiator is rated to tow about 7,600 pounds properly equipped. Now, this tower does weigh a little bit more than the 6-cylinder, surprisingly. As this one sits, it weighs around 4,500 pounds. It's only about a 100-pound increase versus the 6-cylinder version. So as you can see, the style of the Wrangler hasn't changed. This car was all new last year, and Jeep didn't really need to make any changes. It's still a really handsome, rugged looking truck that will remain iconic and timeless for years to come. This particular one here that I'm showing you is the Rubicon trim. It has its own slightly unique front fascia. This one here has the LED lighting package for about $1,000. You'll add full LED low and high beams, an LED running light, and then you have LED turn signals here on the side. It's definitely worth the $1,000 upgrade, although I think Jeep should make it a standard. My tester also has the steel bumper group for about $1,200 extra. It adds front and rear steel bumpers with a little area here where you could add an aftermarket winch, along with the red tow hooks. It looks really nice, especially in this punked orange metallic paint color. Now, the one thing I like about the Wrangler is the fact that Jeep continues to offer 2 different sizes. The last Wrangler video that I showed you was the shorter 2-door version. This is the unlimited Rubicon model, which means its wheelbase and overall length is about 21.5 inches longer, which makes this thing about 189 inches long overall. It's about 3.5 inches longer than the previous JK Wrangler. It's really going to add more interior space. Wranglers still continue to ride on a body-on-frame platform. You still have solid axles front and rear. This particular one has the Dana 44 axles, which you can disconnect the sway bars, of course, for off-roading capabilities. Jeep also says this truck has about 10.5 inches of ground clearance, which is about an inch more than what you get in the standard Wrangler, which is nice. I also have the soft top on this one, which is nice. It works just like the Gladiator, where you can flip back the soft top and then you can remove these side and rear windows to give you guys the full effect of a top-down motoring experience. Now, at the back, you can see the Rubicon model has a gigantic spare tire on the back, which adds to the rugged appeal. I love how it's a full-size matching spare tire, perfect when you're going off-roading. The LED taillights here are included when you get the LED headlights, and then because you have the steel bumper group, you also have a steel bumper over here, and then under here you can see it's got just one exhaust tip. It's not even, mounted with any chrome, but it's the 4-cylinder engine, so let me let you guys hear what that engine sounds like real quick. Now the sound is definitely interesting. You hear some turbo whistle noises. It looks weird how it's coming out of a Wrangler. So I imagine a lot of owners may play with the exhaust, may play with the tuning of this truck. Now, this Unlimited model does have a fair amount of cargo space. Now to get rid of this, you actually have to remove this rear window, which is a disadvantage compared to the hardtop. But Jeep says you get around 32 cubic feet of space with the seats up. Fold down the second row seats and you get about 72 cubic feet of space. That actually matches that of the two-door model, which is surprising. Basically with the Unlimited, Jeep gives you all of the space in the actual back seats, not necessarily in the cargo area. Now, Jeep Wranglers have gotten pretty expensive, so the interior, you expect it to be much improved. And honestly, this is the top of the line Rubicon model, so let me get into the interior materials in just a second. But let's hear the door sound first. It actually sounds nice and solid, which for a vehicle that's a convertible that has the ability to take the roof off, that's actually a really great achievement. So bravo on Jeep for that. Now, I'm gonna briefly touch base on this interior because I've already shown you multiple first-person interior views of this all-new Wrangler and the Gladiator. I really like what they've done with the Rubicon trim because you have this actual stitching on the dashboard here with this leather material. It's got the contrasting stitching. I've seen some Rubicons where they have like a red ionized material here. Surprised this one has kind of like a gray plastic material. Jeep claims that this interior is water resistant, so you could technically get all this wet and everything should still work. You can see some of the rubberized materials in here look like they're actually designed to block out the water if this thing did, get wet. Because remember, the top comes down. Now the steering wheel here you can see is just a manual tilt and telescoping adjustment. If I could find the lever, which is over here, you can see it offers a decent amount of adjustability, but I found that the steering wheel doesn't come out far enough for me. The door panels are also soft touch. All your window control switches are over here. The front windows are one touch down, but not one touch up. I found that to be frustrating because of the controls of the window switches. Now this over here is the 8.4-inch Uconnect head unit. It does include Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, which is included. So again, you can see there's with the CarPlay what it looks like when it's on. It is relatively nice. It's still one of the better, mainstream head units in the business. You can see it also has factory embedded navigation system, where it's kind of like a Garmin TomTom based navigation system. Now, when you put the vehicle into reverse, you can see it has a backup camera. It also has the parking sensors and whatnot. No 360 camera. My tester is missing the off-road camera, where it gives you the front camera, where you could spray it out with washer fluid if it gets dirty. Now, in terms of some quirks and features in here, I really appreciate the fact that everything in this car is very old school still. You have these exposed screw heads here. On this grab handle, it spells out Wrangler over there. You have some nice little Easter eggs where you have like a little Jeep that's embedded into the windshield over there. There's a little Jeep branding over here on the shifter, which this one of course has the 8-speed automatic. I also appreciate the fact that this car has very traditional four-wheel drive levers. You can see you can switch it between 2 high, 4 high, where it's like a manly lever where you have to really move it. And then over here you can disconnect the sway bars. You can lock the front and rear differentials, which is nice. You can also add your own auxiliary switches over here where you can add like an outside fog light, a winch and whatnot. You have your USB port over there. You have a USB-C outlet. So there's a lot of modern tech in this car that really will be appreciated for people who want a Wrangler and also want the latest features. Now, I'm glad to see there's actually a manual parking brake. There's a nice padded area over here for your elbows, and then there's good storage underneath here in the center console. And then the seats have also been greatly improved versus the previous generations. The headrest is now actually soft, whereas in the previous JK, they were like rocks, especially if you would actually hit your head on it. It actually really hurt pretty badly. Now, the one thing about the Unlimited model, this one being 21.5 inches longer, the back seat is much better versus the two-door. Jeep says you get around 38 inches of legroom, and you also have rear seat vents. This vehicle is very much capable to be used for family usage, and you have decent amount of cargo space in the actual cargo area if you guys need to carry all your crap. So I've become really familiar with the new Wrangler, as you guys heard me say earlier, but mostly with the 6-cylinder. This is my first time driving the 4-cylinder, and at first, you think, oh, why do you only have 4 cylinders? But it's turbocharged and it's electrified mildly. So this thing has more torque than the 6-cylinder, and it's actually going to be quicker. And because it has so much low-end torque, the back end will step out from time to time if you leave it in its rear drive mode. Honestly, this is the quickest Wrangler that Jeep has ever offered. And And the sound is definitely interesting because this is a 4-cylinder. 4-cylinders don't technically sound very good, but you do hear a slight turbo whistle noise, and it's interesting because it's coming from a Wrangler, which we've never had a turbocharged Wrangler before. So this is what makes it more interesting, and I imagine a lot of people are going to be tuning the engines to turbocharge, and if you put a decent exhaust system in it, it could be nice sounding. I will say the 6-cylinder sounds better, but the off-the-line feel of the 4-cylinder is really where it's at, and it's why this vehicle, the engine has 35 more foot-pounds of torque. It's really going to help this thing get off the line. Jeep says 0 to 60 times around 6.5 seconds. I believe it because this thing feels relatively quick. Now, in terms of everyday usability, Wranglers still have live axles front and rear. It's still body on frame. You have a recirculating ball type steering, which sounds like the recipe for a car that's horrible to live with, but surprisingly, this thing is really civilized. I mean, it's ride quality. You know, you feel the bumps, but it's not horrible. It's also not terribly noisy in here, considering you've got these big 33-inch tall all-terrain tires. You know, you could take this thing out on the highway for longer trips. You'd be comfortable because the seats are also comfortable. Now, visibility is also not bad in here as well. You have these large side mirrors. You have a good view out of the front. The view out of the back is good. I imagine if you take off all the, the top, the doors and whatnot, you have that complete open air feeling that you can only get from a Wrangler. The steering in this car is definitely not sports car quick. It's been tuned specifically for off-roading, especially with this Rubicon model. But obviously, you're not going to be judging a Wrangler for its off-road or for its on-road dynamics, but this thing is also very capable. Now, the start-stop technology in this car also works really well because of that eTorque technology. So when I put my foot down and just move it from the brake to the gas, it starts right up. There's no lag. Yeah, I mean, this thing is really quick. It surprised me because it's so much quicker than that Gladiator I last drove with a 6-speed manual. So I hate to say it, the 8-speed automatic is the better transmission, whether you get the 6-cylinder or, with this 4-cylinder, which it comes standard with. It's just the better transmission. It's quick shifting, it's responsive, it's refined. This is one of the best torque converter automatics built by ZF in the business. So really, I have no complaints there. What I do want to complain about is the cost of this powertrain. $3,000 for a 4-cylinder, which technically the engine itself only costs $1,000. The transmission is $2,000, which it's weird how Jeep charges more for the transmission. I just don't understand that. Now, in terms of driver assistance tech, this car was refreshed, or they added adaptive cruise control for 2019. It has full speed range adaptive cruise control, which is nice. You still can't get active lane keep assist, so it's kind of like, not quite there in terms of approaching self-driving. But the fact that Jeep offers adaptive cruise control and automatic braking is unheard of in a Wrangler. It's just something that, a technology that Jeep enthusiasts probably never thought they'd get in a vehicle like the Wrangler. But overall, this thing is still a really nice driving car. The fuel economy, I want to lastly talk about that. I've been averaging around 17.5 miles to the gallon, at least that's what the computer's telling me, so close to 18. On the highway, it will do the mid-20s. So again, you are getting the fuel economy benefit of this 4-cylinder. The noise is a little bit different, but I think that a lot of people, once they drive the 4-cylinder, they're going to be really surprised. It's the engine to get in this car. It really makes the Wrangler much better in terms of on-road dynamics because you have way more torque off the line. So Jeep really hit a home run when they introduced the all-new JL Wrangler last year. Not only did it address all of the faults of the previous generation JK, but it really brought the Wrangler into the modern era. It's basically the modern truck that we've always wanted, an SUV that actually has the capability to go off-road. It's got these rugged, tough looks. It has a timeless design that instantly will be recognized for many years to come. And really, if you guys are looking for tech, but you want the Wrangler's more traditional style, it offers that in this all-new body style. It's the best of both worlds. And really what I wanted the Wrangler to give me was a new powertrain, and this all-new 2-liter turbocharged engine is that new powertrain that I was waiting for, because unlike the 6-cylinder, which has a very soft, low off-the-line feel or slow off-the-line feel, this 2-liter with the eTorque technology feels quick off the line. You actually have a 0 to 60 time that's about a half second quicker, and you get better gas mileage. Even though I only averaged about 18 miles to the gallon in my mixed driving, which is about 2 mpg better than the 6-cylinder, I would easily take this because it's so much quicker. It's got a really great 8-speed automatic transmission, and even though the Wrangler still has the capability to go off-road, it's still also very livable in the daily basis. Even though it has these big 33-inch tall tires, it has solid axles front and rear, the ride quality is still relatively more comfortable. It's also relatively quiet on the inside, and it has a really high quality interior that was really just unheard of in any Wrangler before it. So now that I've spent a week with the Wrangler and the 2-liter engine, it's time to give this thing an RPM rating. Now, starting with the R in Redline for real world usage, I'm gonna give the Wrangler an 8 out of 10 points simply because it's an SUV, it's got space in the back, it has space in the trunk, and you can take this thing off-road and then drive it to and from work. It won't beat you up in the daily commute. Now, moving on to the E for efficiency, I'm gonna give the Wrangler a 5 simply because while it is more fuel efficient than the 6-cylinder, it's still a relatively heavy 4,500 pound SUV that's gonna get right around just under 20 mpg in the real world usage. You may actually do better because I actually got this thing up to about 25 mpg on the highway, which is significantly better than the 6-cylinder. Now, moving on to the D for desirability, I'm gonna give the Wrangler a 9 because let's face it, this car is hot on the market. It has one of the strongest resale values in the segment, and people who see a Wrangler basically give you a thumbs up, or all the Wrangler owners will wave at you whenever you drive this thing. So I'll easily give it a 9 for desirability. Now, moving on to the L for longevity. Now, this is a Jeep. Jeep hasn't always had the best reputation for reliability, so I'm actually going to give it a 6 out of 10 points, which matches that of a lot of European brands, because remember, the Japanese brands have a better reputation, so I would give this car a higher rating if it had the same kind of reputation. So moving on to innovation, I would have to give this thing a 7 out of 10 points because while it is the most tech-focused Wrangler that Jeep has ever offered, it's still missing a couple of variants. Like, there is still no diesel version out yet. It should be coming next year, and then supposedly Jeep is working on a plug-in hybrid version, and whenever those start to come out, I'll probably bump this thing up maybe a point or so on the scale, but I'll give it a 7 out of 10 points. So now moving on to need for speed, which is the N in Redline, I'm gonna give the new Wrangler 2-liter a 6 out of 10 points because even though, you know, it's not supercar quick, this is quick by SUV standards for 0-60 time of around 6.5 seconds. So I'll easily give this thing a 6 out of 10 points. So last but not least, the final E in Redline, which stands for expense, that's gonna be the overall cost of this vehicle. And this is something that really, I wanted to give the Wrangler a higher score, but this has gotten seriously, ridiculously overpriced. Now, this car starts at around $28,000. This one that I'm showing you here, stickers for over $56,000. $50,000 plus for a Jeep. Now, granted, this one has a buttload of options on it, but I think Jeep should start including a lot more features as standard equipment. Like, I shouldn't have to pay, you know, extra for LED headlights or the leather or the upgraded 8.4-inch screen, considering this is the top-end Rubicon model. So I had to dock this one for points. I'm giving the expense category a 4 out of 10 points for a grand total of 45 out of 70 points when you add all the scores together. Now, obviously, the scoring system is still a little bit new, so once I have more vehicles, more SUVs on there, I'll be able to better match the Wrangler. But with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on this 2019 Jeep Wrangler 2-liter. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews. Like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.